So here's the three subjects that we're going to cover tonight. We're going to cover a constant improvement. Okay, that was one of the suggestions somebody did in the post. We're going to talk about motivating others, and we're going to talk a little bit about predicting the next 3 years and what to expect in the future from my perspective. Hey, DJ, what's happening? Kyle, what's going on? Sean, super nice to see you here. Ryan Fisher, what's up, brother? Okay, yeah, do me a favor. Everybody, tag at least one person, okay? Bring somebody on here because it's cool that we're talking together, but what's cooler is if I'm able to help as many lives change on as many of these as possible, because then we could change the game, right? Write down the word like collective intelligence, right? Collective intelligence is the ability for me to communicate and collectively raise the intelligence or the awakening or the thinking of people so that we do not become a slave to a system, okay? But we choose the system and build the system way we want. And if you're a super achiever, then tag 2 or 3 people in it. All right, let's talk about constant improvement. So first off, to have constant improvement, you have to be in a state of mind of knowing that growth, okay, that growth is something that creates an evolution in you, that the evolution in you is going to create greater results. Now, when you stop evolution, let's use health, for example, okay? So if you stop the evolution of health and you sit here and go, okay, well, I just eat vegetables and I'm vegetarian and that's going to keep me healthy forever, but you never choose to do any biomarkers, health KPIs, right? Health KPIs are health key performance indicators. And if you never do that, well, then it's like, oh, I think I don't need anything else. And at the moment you think you don't need anything else, you're hoping that your brain will create new pathways all by itself, right? But it won't. If you just went and you were locked in a rubber room, okay? It's just a rubber room. It's dark, there's nothing around. The only thing you would be able to explore is your thoughts and your connectedness to those thoughts. That's it. Because if there's nothing new you see, nothing new you hear, nothing new you feel, there could be no new thoughts being created. So you would be just stuck with this box of what you have. So when you wonder why people kind of can go insane in isolation, it's because as humans, we're built to experience change. We're built to experience new things. And when you don't have anything new to see, which like every minute's new, like I'm looking at my desk and I'm like, okay, this mail is new. My belt is here. It's normally not there. I have 2 knives there. The one normally goes downstairs. Like my drink is, I wanted to go get a paper towel. It's like sweating here. So it's new. Now this constant state of new, it may not be conscious to you because part of, and I want you to write this down or at least type it in the chat bar, everybody. Part of constant improvement is being constantly present. Okay? To have constant improvement is to be constantly present in the moment, to be able to explore. Let's do a little fun exercise. Somebody did this to me many years ago. Like, I want you to just like look at your hand. Okay, everybody look at your hand and find something on your hand like you never knew it was there before. Like I just noticed there's a line here. Like I never realized that line was so far up above that. Like, and when you notice something new on your hand, like type it in. What did you notice? Did you notice a line? Is there a cut? Like I just noticed something else. There's a bump. Like this is a pretty big bump here on my finger, and I just noticed like I have this like thumb vein thing. It's like a thumb vein going on here. And so now what happens is I'm being very present in what I'm seeing here for the very first time, and it's my own hand. It's my own hand. And if you want, like, flip it over now. Oh man, like, look at that. Like, I have a whole, look at the veins on okay, this way. You see the veins on the back of the hand? Like, look at these things. Like, I knew I had veins, but like look at how they're crisscrossed. So now I'm being very present. Now, when you're present and the present state of exploration, you now start to have new awakenings like, oh, wow, curiosity, that's neat. Like, I never noticed it. Now you start to look around and you start to see, right? It's like the Scrooge, right? What was that? The Night Before Christmas, or what is that movie with the Scrooge in it? Type it in the chat bar for me. And like, all of a sudden he was blinded by all this stuff until he was awakened, right? Until he was awakened by, and that story actually has a ton of metaphors beyond even what you probably thought about, right? There was the past, right? And being able to see like who you were, where you are. There was the present, like how you behave. Then there's the future, like what to expect. Now, let me give you a little awakening here. DJ's got two small bumps. And remember, as I'm talking to you, I'm talking with you, which means as I say something and it makes you think different, I want you to type it in the chat bar. Not for me, for you. Because your brain says, oh man, that's really good. Like, I never noticed that before, or that's new to me, right? So make sure you're typing it in the chat bar there. So if we look at this state of constant improvement by design, let me give you a big wake-up call. And I want you to be transparent, because some of you have been on here every single, Christmas Carol. Thank you, Sean. Some of you have been on here every night, and I hope there's value for you guys. But I want you to think of something for me. And I don't want to say this to make you feel bad. Maybe it'll make you feel good. But based on what's happening in your life right now, based on your mind and how you think, based on your health and how you're living, based on your relationships and how you're engaging, if you look out 20 years and you were to put one word down right now, just being transparent, no judgments here, okay, everybody? Code of honor, no judgments amongst any of us. We're all here to learn. And you were to put one word 20 years out from now, you took, based on what life is like now, how you think now, how you behave now, how you're engaging in your relationships now, what you do now, what you don't do now, what you think in your mind before you go to bed, what you think when you wake up in the middle of the night, and you took this out 20 years and you made no improvement. Give me one word what it's going to feel like 20 years from now. What is it going to be? Is it going to be exciting? Is it going to be painful? Is it going to be suffering? Is it going to be sickness? Is it going to be fatigue? Is it going to be broke? Is it going to be debt? Like, what is it? And as much as this might be a little scary for you, it should also be awakening. Okay, so we got Jason's like, I'm going to feel trapped. Sean's like, I'll be scattered. Ryan's like, lifeless. Now, okay, so your brain, I got to take a drink of water, everybody. Your brain has now, okay, in the Christmas Carol, the Reaper has come to you. And don't be Facebook messaging me in the middle of the night. You had crazy dreams and shit. Even though I did have a crazy dream. I have to tell my friend Jason, I had a crazy dream. He was in it and he built this little roller coaster like I was on. It was really weird. It was last night. I just remembered it now. So you can message me. My thing won't go off anyway if you have crazy dreams. But imagine the Reaper comes and the Reaper says to you, let me take you out 20 years and let me show you what this is going to look like. Okay? Now, some of you, I bet, said 20 years and you gave me a word, but in your mind, you're like dead, fatigued, done, right? Exhausted, lifeless. Now, if the Reaper shows this to you and then brings you back in time, remember the Scrooge goes out and he starts dancing, he runs in the street, he buys the turkey or something, he gives the kid the money, and he's happy and he's smiling. You know why? And I hope you get this awakening tonight with me, which is like almost 10 o'clock at night, but I know I'm running late. My wife is texting me. She's like, are you kidding me? When are you going live? I'm like, I got to finish here and I'm going to stay up with you until I create transformation here. That's what we're doing here. Okay. You come and hang out with me because we're going to do transformation. Here's the transformation. This could be Christmas morning for you or Hanukkah morning or whatever the hell you celebrate. This could be it right now. So that when you follow it out, you do not have to live with, this is the part about constant improvement, is constant awareness of what will my future be if I don't make any changes? What will my relationship be if I don't make any changes? What will my health be if I don't make any changes? What will my life be if I don't make any changes? Now, you could turn around and go, well, I don't know what changes to make. No, that's bullshit, because you could be asking me a question here, which you're welcome to ask a question. Like if you don't know what to change, ask a question. Okay? All right. Tell me what your big takeaway is so far. I want to know what your takeaway is so far. I'm hoping part of your takeaway is a sense of awakening and transformation of saying, you know what, Mike, you're right. I can make a difference in this moment, and every moment I make a difference now is going to affect a year, a decade, double decades, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now. There's nothing that will bother me more than to find out a decade from now, one of you jump on my live Facebook messages, and it's a decade from now, and you tell me you feel lifeless. And I'm like, man, don't you remember a decade ago? Conversely, what if it looks pretty good? So you feel complacent. Yeah, so let's look at what does pretty good do. And I want you to hold that, because we're going to talk about the next 3 years out. And let's think about pretty good. Okay? And what's the consequences of pretty good, right? And if you died and you knew you did pretty good, would you like be happy at that moment with pretty good, right? Ryan, let's see. What will my life be if I don't make any changes? Yeah, I agree with you. Ryan says, this is perfect timing, Mike. Doing things with intention and purpose instead of just floating through life. 100%. I've never thought of it. The things we think about now could be the same things we think about years from now. Yes, 100%. Okay, so now we know the importance of constant improvement. You might think this is crazy, what I'm going to say, but like, I think between my wife and myself in the last 15, 18 years, we're like 2.7 million in education. 2.7 million. Now people go, that's crazy. That's a lot of money. Is it? I mean, is it compared to doing hundreds and hundreds of millions in business? Is it really? Is it really a lot of money? Like, what would you pay to have the greatest relationship in life? What would you pay to have the greatest health in life? You'd pay way more than 2.7 million. But most people don't invest enough to find these things out for them. And this is the most critical, the critical things to do are these things. Constant improvement is not an option, okay? It's a constant journey. And the word that I always think of with constant improvement is mastery. Mastery is one of my favorite words. I'm actually surprised I don't have mastery tattooed on me. I should get it tattooed. Because mastery is being better tomorrow than you are today by design and by intent. Okay. Now that we know constant improvement, let's go to motivating others. You cannot motivate others unless you first can motivate yourself. Now, first off, people say you can't motivate anybody at all. But the reality is if you were in a room with me and I pulled out my Glock and started shooting over your head, like I would motivate your ass to move or try to shoot me back. One or the other. So I could create forced motivation. But forced motivation is temporary. Now I learned this in my own company, just so you know. In my company, I went and tried to create forced motivation. Like, everybody come in, we're playing rock music, clap your hands, right? But then they would leave the room and they would go back to exactly who they were. It was forced motivation. So what I learned was I don't want any motivation. I want transformation. I want permanent change. See, if there was something that if you were rewind the last 3 decades but definitely the last decade for helping people, and you said like, hey, Mike, if you were to summarize in one word, what did you do the last decade to change the last decade of people's lives? I would say transformation. I created a permanent transformation for people. An ability, not for them, the ability to facilitate an environment, an education, a teaching for them to get present in the moment and to connect new pathways for them to think forever. See, temporary motivation is when you go to a rock concert and you go to these webinars or these seminars and they clap for 3 days and then Monday morning no one's clapping for you. So you reset your ass right back. That's temporary motivation. Transformation is you attend a training, you work with someone, you wake up the next morning, you go, I'm different today. That's my quest for all these. That today, if you were on yesterday's, today you're a little different, permanently different. The day before, a little permanently. You went through the relationship, and if any of you did not watch the chaos training, certainty training, relationship training, they're all free, everybody. I don't know anybody doing, tell me if you know anybody doing more free values and training than we are. Why? Well, we're going to impact 1 million people or more in a decade or less in 100 countries or more. We know what we're going to do. So if you turn around here, first thing is you must create your own transformation before you could ever expect transformation from other people. If you can't transform, how could you expect anybody else to do it? I mean, what I learned was teaching people how to sell is really about the easiest skill in the world. It really is. Teaching people how to grow a business is very, very simple. Teaching people operations and build is very simple. Teaching people how to transform the way they think, the way they act, the way they behave, their patterns, their habits. Now that I learned takes a hell of a skill set to do. The other stuff, come on. Spend enough money on marketing, you'll get clients. Do enough direct mail, you'll get clients. Like, that's why I'm always saying, like, if you want to know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, it's going to be the egg called you, and it's going to be the peak performance, the change, the human potential inside of you that must change. So just so you know, motivating others, okay, we don't do. We learn the skill to transform others, or you hire people to transform others for you. But you never do it until you transform yourself. Since I've grown and built big companies and sold big companies, every training I've ever brought in to my organization, I always did the training myself first. Always. I did that because I needed to know how I transformed, how I felt, and what changed inside of me. And if I didn't feel a change, like I remember one time I was in an organization and I left that organization, but I gave them about $100,000 that year for training. And they brought in a sales trainer for 3 days, about $45,000. This is a lot of money for 3 days of training, everybody. A lot of money. And in the end, I got nothing, like the tiniest little blip. You know why? Because a really well-known sales trainer was trying to teach a transformation group, people that were transformed, which means that trainer wasn't transformed, so he had nothing. He had a couple little, fancy language bullshit to try to use on people, a couple fancy phrases, a couple objections, but he was dealing with a transformed culture that was running at a very high level of thinking, understanding the way they were. So actually, it was a complete waste of money, the 45,000. It was an incredible lesson for me that I can never bring anybody into my culture ever to do anything for me or my employees or my team or my vendors unless they had the skill set to create a new transformation, a new way of thinking for the people. Otherwise, how many seminars, how many trainings have you went to and you had a good time but you got nothing? Hey, JR, how you doing? Like, tell me, like, how many trainings did you go to? How many you went to Las Vegas to a training? You went to and you came back. You had a good time, but you didn't. Nothing changed. Tell me in the chat bar. I mean, come on, be real. Like, I get it. Like, it happened for me. It happened for my team. All right, so we know that constant improvement. And anybody who joined on, do me a favor, invite a friend in here because, like, we're changing lives. That's what we're doing. We're transforming tonight, and we're hanging out after 10 o'clock with me here because I want nothing from you except transformation. That's it. And change. And I want you to send me a message and be like, I did this and I'm closer with my wife now. Okay? We weren't close. Now we're close. Right? I did this and I wasn't healthy and I wasn't paying attention and I was eating all kinds of shit, smoking all kinds of shit, drinking all kinds of shit, and I stopped because now I want to live longer. Right? That's all we're looking for. That's what Food Dog Group's built on. Helping people transform their lives, right? Okay. So now let's talk about how constant improvement, this transformation, and let's talk about predicting the next 3 years. Now, the next 3 years is a very interesting time. And there's a lot of things that we could talk about, right? We could talk about economic trends. We could talk about, geography, or we could talk about the world, like what's happening if weather and pollution, we could talk about that. But really, the number one indicator that I want to talk about for the next 3 years that I believe is the most important indicator for you to follow and think about. And I don't know, I don't know if there's a chart out there someone has, but I'm going to tell you from my perspective that there's only one indicator that will mean anything in the world for the State of the Union over the next 3 years. If you think you know what the indicator is, like, type it in the chat bar. Type it in the chat bar. Let's see what you guys say. Number one indicator. There's only one for the next 3 years. That's important. It's actually, sorry, Dust. It's actually always been the only one, but nobody talks about this one. Okay, nobody talks about this one. It's kind of weird that nobody talks about it, and it could be because as an indicator, it's the most manipulated indicator out there. USD. Okay. What else you guys think? What do you think? Just take a guess at it. What's going to be the number one indicator that will tell you how everything will happen in the world over the next 3 years? How the economic state will be, every aspect of everything. Anybody else want to take a plug at it before I give it? Okay, let me just give it to you. So the number one thing to pay attention to that I believe is going to be the most critical thing to watch. Oh, Kyle, very close. Mindset. It's going to be the emotional state of humans. The emotional state of humans. Now, what happens is COVID is a shitty thing, right? It's a crappy thing. I just got over it like a couple weeks ago. And what happened is that when you have something like this, like a pandemic, and you have it for years, even though it's not at the point where it was, where it's hurting people as much as it was, people are still getting sick with it today. It is the aftershock that people have to think about. And the aftershock is, if you look at the rising aftershock after COVID, is right now what's happening is that there is more mental illness, more anxiety, more depression, and this aftershock is going to build. Okay, it doesn't just go away. And the more that we throw at the emotional state, the more that the aftershock actually expands. So if you look at it, it's like, hey, we got this one pandemic, now we got this other monkey thing, right? So that's another thing thrown on it. And then we have the war thing, right? And then all of a sudden, we're going to go into the election thing. And when we go into the election thing, then we create friction and resistance. Okay? We start to create a lot of friction and resistance. And when friction and resistance come in, it starts to expand. Yeah, and JR, the part of the aftershock of mental illness and anxiety and depression is addiction follows that. Because what happens is addiction is a mechanism to hopefully numb the emotional states that people are dealing with. Now, I know a lot of people in my world like, look, and I get it. You don't have to follow me. You don't have to listen to me. And you don't even have to like what I say. Matter of fact, you can kick me off Facebook if you want. I'm only going to give you my perspective. My perspective is I get that people say they drink responsibly. Now, I've watched alcohol pour on things and tear paint. I've watched Pepsi and Coca-Cola take paint off things. Like, there's a point where you have to say to yourself, is if I look out 20 years from now, am I okay with that? Like, you don't pray at the moment like everything went bad, right? Like that's not the moment to try to course correct things. And all of this creates part of this emotional state aftershock. And then what happens is that's why, suicides are up so much. And then military, right? And then suicides, which is sad. And then you have homelessness. Now, I'm not saying these things to upset you. I'm telling you to make you aware of the most important thing to pay attention to over the next 3 years is going to be the emotional state of yourself, of your family, of your friends, of your community. Now, when you surround yourself with people in a very healthy emotional state, you have a better chance of staying in healthy emotional states. Like in my world, we have a program called the Freedom Tribe. If you come to the Freedom Tribe and you have a problem, we're going to listen to the problem, not to expand the problem, but to solve the problem. We're not going to look to support the significance of the problem. And a lot of people want significance of it. They're like, oh, let me tell you about this. Like, I have this problem, and you're like, oh my God, I'm sorry to hear about your problem. And oh, this is horrible. You have that problem? It's like, that's why when I go places and people say, to tell me about their problem, I say, hey, I got your problem. I hope you don't mind. Are we going to solve this thing tonight? Because if we're not going to look to solve and improve something, like, I'm the wrong type of friend for you. Like, I'm not that guy that's going to have you cry on his shoulder for like 6 months. I'm just not that guy. And I know myself. So I'd rather like take you over to someone like when my grandmother was alive, like she just let you cry on her shoulder for like a year, years. Like she'd just pat your back and you could just keep crying. That's just not me because like that state of emotion doesn't pull you forward. It pulls you down and pulls you back. Right? And the emotional states create a story. And the story that you decide to live in, okay, is gonna create your future. Right? So if you live in the story of victim and problem and all this stuff, that's gonna pull you back. It doesn't push you forward. I don't know anybody that lives in a state of victimhood and they're moving forward. I just don't know. I've never in 3 decades come across that. Now, here's the good news. The good news is that, like, you have an advantage of at least considering what I'm saying. Now, I don't know what help it's going to take for you. I don't know if you need a therapist, a mentor, a coach. I don't know what you need. I'm just going to tell you, but I believe there's something that can help everyone move forward, right? When I started studying energy, and if you want to write down something just to maybe think about why you sleep tonight, like energy is everything and everything is energy. And when I started to really understand this, Chad, right? When I started to really understand energy at a higher level on like energy, energy and frequency and harmony, and how it all works together. And I started to understand that everything was a frequency. Like sickness is a frequency, health is a frequency, money's a frequency. It started to expand my mind into saying, well, wait a second. If everything is a vibration, and everything has a frequency, and everything's energy, what does emotional states have to do and work within this realm of vibration and energy? Now, you answer for me in the chat bar. When you're in a state of being depressed, anxiety, do you think that your vibration is high, or do you think it's very low? What do you think? When you're in a depressed state, an upstate state, high or low? Now I know I poke some people when I say this, but when you drink a lot of alcohol, your vibration state, high or low? You know why they call it spirits, right? They call it spirits because it takes over your energy field from you. When you're in a state, and I realize that some of you are like, you do it, and maybe that's okay for you. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to share. When you're doing some kind of drugs or some vibration state, high or low? Now, I know you think because you snorted something or took something like you're in high all over. No. That's not a high vibration state. It's a very low vibration state. It's mechanically high because it sticks the mechanical systems in overdrive, not the energetic system in overdrive. Okay? When the mechanical system's out of control, the energy field shrinks in, doesn't expand out. Now, when you understand this, you start to say to yourself, well, wait a second. If I'm going to put that in my body, now remember, we're talking about what's the next 3 years. The decisions you're making today are going to affect the next 3 years of everybody. Your decision plays a part in everybody's next 3 years. I am a firm believer, since energy is everything and everything is energy, well, I am a believer in ultra connectedness, that we're all connected, okay? Because it is one big energy field, which means what you do affects everybody. What you do creates a reality in everybody in one way or another. All right, let's pause there a minute, and I'll get ready to put a ribbon on it. I know it's getting late for some of you, and I still wanted to do some training myself tonight. I like to do some learning and training before bed. So we'll close this up in a couple minutes, but tell me so far tonight, Brian and Ryan and all of you that are still on here, what is most helpful and what have you heard that is helping you transform tonight? Even if it's an invitation, everybody. Even if it's just a little invitation where you go, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it is easy, please. Making these types of decisions, making these types of changes is not complicated, not easy, but definitely different. Okay? Different. It's different by a choice. But if you knew tonight that if you did this one thing, your heart would die, you probably would make an instant change. So I just want to, let's make an instant change if we can. So let's see what you guys have. Transform self before expecting it of others. Yes, Joel, definitely. Yeah, because it's like, oh, you should be like this, and you should think like this, and you should be like that. And it's like, yeah, okay, but you're not like that, and you haven't done that. Like, I would never expect anybody to do anything that I didn't do. I would never expect anybody to try to transform if I didn't try to transform. The only reason I believe I could share this is because I've done all the things that I don't want you to do. Well, I never did drugs and alcohol. That was by a decision. But I did plenty of beating up my mind. I did plenty of crawling into dark holes and dark spaces, right? Okay, just good reminder and reinforced beliefs. Awesome, Jara. Late to join, but right away heard something that is in line with today. Okay, perfect, Chris. Awesome. Lead by example. Awesome, Jerry. Yeah. So let's take this information that we talked about, which is about constant improvement. It's about the concept of can't motivate, but we want to transform. Just so you know, when people are transformed, they create endless motivation. Have you guys, I mean, so some of you guys have been in my world a while, like Jerry, JR, like when you see me, am I normally at the same vibration, like higher energy, or am I always lower, or am I up and down? Like, what do you notice? Like, I feel now I'm not always up. Sometimes I go down low vibration too. Get in my head, tell myself stories, deal with things, and then I have to remind myself like vibrate up. What are you doing, right? Yeah, but it's by design. So when you have transformation, motivation just follows. Okay? When you have like I did not need to get motivated for this because I've been transformed over the last 3 nights of doing this stuff for you guys. Like I can feel the change. Tell me in the chat bar, can you feel the change in you or some others that like, and since I could feel the change, I'm transforming to become stronger and more motivated by my transformation because I feel your change. So I'm just riding the wave of your change. And that's creating more for me and hopefully for you too, right? Okay. Generally positive. Okay, awesome. So take what you learned tonight, apply it. We're going to end it now. And any of you, if I can help in any way, if you haven't gotten my new Mind Power book, if you need me to send you a copy, I'll send it to you as a gift on me. I'll pay for postage and everything, guys. Just hit me with a private message. Give me your address because I always got to go like, they say, yeah, give me the book. I'm like, okay, give me your address. Just send me your address. I'll send it to you. We'll send you a free book. I'd love for you to read it. It's amazing. It's got great stuff in it. Also, please, if I could ask, if you're getting value, let me ask one favor. I still work on that. I am one of those guys that I'm really good at giving. I still suck a lot at asking, but I do want to ask for something. We have this relationship training. It's really, really good. And if you know anybody that it's free training. If you know anybody that this relationship training would help out, can you just Facebook message me? I'll give you the direct YouTube link. Send it to a couple that might be arguing, or maybe a couple that you care about, your kids or grandkids, or somebody that's old enough that you're like, I just want them to have an advantage you didn't have. And we have the 2 other trainings. We have the certainty training. So if you know anybody who's just unsure about life and they're struggling and they're not, like they're sitting on the couch and they don't know, like the certainty training so good, I'll just give it to you. And then we have the chaos training. If you know anybody that's just dealing with massive chaos in their life, like these are all free trainings. I just want to get it to as many people as I can so we could keep, because you know what? Next year is going to be a result on every one of us. The way we live next year will be the way we serve this year. Let me say that one more time before we end, okay? The way we go into next year is going to be the way we serve this year. That's the way it is. So the more you serve, I want to give you things so you give it to other people. Don't keep it to yourself, everybody. Please. There's no, everybody's life has a right to have a better life, a happier life, a healthier life. I just want it, me, my wife, my team, Aaron, my son. We just want to help. That's what we want to do. We just want to help people grow with that stuff. Okay. All right. Thanks for hanging out tonight. I want you to be safe. I want you to have a great night rest. Unless you're in Australia, then have a great day. I love you guys. Now, tomorrow I do my Freedom Tribe meeting. So it's from 7 to 9. So if you guys post that you're doing things and taking action and telling me, okay, I'll transform again and I'll show up tomorrow night and we'll play again tomorrow night. We'll have a good time. All right. Love you guys. Boom.